Why do we struggle so much more to let go of things we never even use than we do to just acquire entirely new things? I mean, walk into almost any home and you are going to find drawers filled with forgotten gadgets or, closets packed with unworn clothes.
Right, and digital accounts too.
Yeah.
Those subscriptions that just silently charge you monthly fees for services you abandoned years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, these objects are rarely just objects. They're symbols, symbols of past intentions, aspirations, and these imagined futures that just may never arrive.
Which is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. Our mission is to really explore the invisible cognitive tax of holding on to the past, specifically for you, the listener.
Because it really is a tax, isn't it?
It is. We want to analyze the fundamental psychology of subtraction. We're going to break down why the objects you keep are actually negotiations with your own history and how releasing them completely alters your human capacity.
So let's unpack this right away. We can observe that every unused possession carries this invisible cognitive cost. Like, imagine a dusty guitar sitting in the corner of a room.
Right. It's not merely a musical instrument gathering dust.
Exactly. Or, an uncompleted online course. It's not just some dormant item sitting in your purchase history. These things are silent demands on your attention.
What's really fascinating here is the psychological framing of these incomplete actions. In psychology, we call these open loops.
Open loops. That makes sense.
Yeah, because the human brain is essentially this prediction and completion machine. It naturally seeks closure. So, unfinished items continuously occupy mental space because your brain is constantly monitoring them for resolution.
Oh, wow. So when people finally declutter, that profound relief they feel, it's not actually about gaining square footage in their living room.
Not at all. It is entirely about closing those psychological loops. As a listener, if you've done this, you experience this surge of energy because you are eliminating countless micro-reminders of obligations. Obligations that, quite frankly, just no longer align with your current reality.
I like to think of it elegantly, I suppose, by comparing these physical and digital open loops to background applications on a smartphone.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Because they silently drain the battery. You can't see them operating on the screen, but they are constantly consuming a finite power supply.
Which is such a massive drain over time.
It really is. And it raises a fundamental issue regarding the logic of hoarding. When people aggressively keep these items because, they might be useful someday, I have to ask, are they actually just operating from a fear-based scarcity mindset?
Well, that's the core of it, isn't it? It brings up this important question regarding the fundamental difference between scarcity and abundance. It's about how the human brain processes survival. Scarcity constantly whispers that resources are strictly limited. It suggests that an obsolete device might miraculously become valuable again, or that an opportunity will just never return.
Which forces you into this state of perpetual defense.
Precisely. Abundance, conversely, recognizes that information can be found again. Skills can be relearned. Opportunities continuously emerge in totally new forms.
Because the truly finite resource in human existence isn't money or physical possessions.
No, it is attention. Every object you retain demands a fraction of your attention for maintenance, storage, or, simply the guilt of neglecting it.
So what does this all mean for personal identity? If our attention is being drained by these objects, they must be doing something fundamental to how we actually view ourselves.
This brings us to a concept known as the Museum of Former Selves.
The Museum of Former Selves. I love that phrasing.
It's powerful. Many individuals unconsciously act as curators of their past identities rather than architects of their future ones.
Right, because every object and abandoned project reflects a version of who they once were, or maybe who they hope to be.
Exactly. But if you look at nature, it operates on an entirely different principle. Nature thrives on relentless release.
Like trees shedding leaves every year just to survive the winter.
Yes, or snakes shedding outgrown skin. Even human cells continuously regenerate. But modern culture erroneously celebrates endless addition as the sole marker of success.
Which is so backwards.
It is. True breakthroughs in architecture, art, and entrepreneurship consistently come from removing what does not belong.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Why does personal growth require that contradiction? Evolving often feels deeply uncomfortable because we desperately want to believe our past choices define us permanently.
We do. We get attached to the narrative.
Right, so letting go of a past ambition like that unplayed guitar we talked about, it feels like invalidating those past dreams and almost feels like a betrayal of the person we used to be.
Well, If we connect this to the bigger picture, holding on to those outgrown identities heavily restricts necessary adaptation. Letting go is not an invalidation of the past.
What is it then?
It's an acknowledgement of new understanding. You are simply allowing the previous iteration of yourself to conclude.
To conclude, I like that. So, to fully grasp the mechanics of this transformation, we really need to systematically analyze the philosophical insights from people who have studied the profound impact of subtraction.
We have 14 specific quotes and concepts to go through today that really map this out.
Let's dive into them. We can begin by examining how we define our physical environment, since that serves as the outermost layer of our psychology. The designer William Morris established a really strict foundational rule.
What does he say?
He stated, "Have nothing in your houses that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful."
Ah, yes. That quote establishes the absolute ultimate baseline for the physical objects we permit to tax our attention. Morris fundamentally challenges the modern default of passive accumulation.
By demanding that every single object justify its presence, right?
Exactly. Through either strict, measurable utility or profound aesthetic value, he introduces this ruthless filtering mechanism for our environments.
Because objects that fail that dual test are not just neutral bystanders in your home.
No, they are active drains on your psychological resources. They demand maintenance and visual processing power without providing any reciprocal value to you.
Now, applying Morris's rule to something like a dining chair is straightforward because we can easily judge its utility and beauty. But how do we apply that strict baseline to the modern digital age?
That's the real challenge.
Right. What about a hard drive filled with thousands of archived emails? Does Morris's rule still apply when the physical footprint is mathematically zero, but the cognitive footprint remains massive?
The underlying mechanism remains completely identical. Digital clutter simply bypasses the physical senses to directly tax the neurological system. Sprawling digital archive still requires indexing, mental mapping, and it carries the subconscious weight of unmade decisions.
Which ties perfectly into Francine J. She presents a complementary challenge to this accumulation. She asserts, your home is living space, not storage space.
That distinction is crucial. It fundamentally shifts the architectural purpose of a structure.
Right, because you build a home to facilitate daily living, rest, and human connection. But when premium space is surrendered to the storage of unused items, the environment's primary function just becomes corrupted.
Precisely. It becomes a domestic warehouse rather than a sanctuary. The physical footprint of a home and, the massive financial costs required to rent or mortgage it just becomes dedicated to preserving the past rather than serving the present.
Which is a terrible return on investment.
It really is.
Yeah.
This spatial distortion forces you to literally navigate around monuments to your former self.
Yeah.
You physically constrain your daily movements to accommodate objects that possess zero current utility.
Marie Kondo actually connects this physical distortion directly to personal evolution. She states, the space in which we live should be for the person we are becoming now, not for the person we were in the past.
Kondo expertly isolates the temporal mismatch that occurs in most modern homes. People naturally surround themselves with artifacts of their history, which continuously anchors their mindset to previous iterations of their identity.
So designing a space for the person you are becoming requires a forward-looking architectural intent.
Exactly. You are effectively using the physical environment to pull yourself into the future, rather than allowing your environment to drag you backward into nostalgia.
And this physical environment inevitably forces us to look inward. If our physical space anchors us to the past, the immaterial space inside our minds performs the exact same function.
Yes, the mental clutter.
Right. Eleanor Brown critically expands on this, observing, clutter is not just physical stuff, it's old ideas, toxic relationships, and bad habits.
Brown really shifts the paradigm by expanding the definition of clutter into the psychological and interpersonal realms. Physical clutter is merely the visible manifestation of a much broader reluctance to release what no longer serves a purpose.
So old ideas and toxic relationships occupy the exact same cognitive bandwidth as a pile of junk mail.
Absolutely the same bandwidth. They create emotional open loops that drain energy and completely distort decision-making.
So the principles of subtraction apply equally to the immaterial aspects of our lives.
They have to. When you tolerate a toxic relationship, you're essentially storing emotional clutter that prevents healthy connections from forming.
Bertrand Russell addresses the philosophical cost of this accumulation further. He notes, it is preoccupation with possessions, more than anything else, that prevents us from living freely and nobly.
That's a profound statement.
It is, but let me ask you, why does the mere ownership of objects prevent a noble existence?
Well, Russell is highlighting the philosophical cost of ownership on human freedom. The preoccupation he describes is the constant maintenance, protection, and mental tracking inherently required by possessions.
Because true freedom is the unencumbered ability to direct your attention toward higher pursuits.
Right. When possessions demand constant management, like insurance, cleaning, upgrading, repairing, they effectively become the masters of your time.
A free and noble existence is mathematically impossible when the majority of your waking hours are dedicated to servicing inanimate objects.
Exactly. And Oscar Wilde reframes this dynamic entirely by questioning the very concept of wealth.
Oh, I love this quote. He states, "Ordinary riches can be stolen. Real riches cannot. In your soul are infinitely precious things that cannot be taken from you."
Wilde brilliantly reframes true abundance away from physical accumulation. He divides wealth into the vulnerable material category and the invulnerable spiritual category.
Exposing the extreme fragility of defining success through possessions.
Precisely. The infinite preciousness of internal development, character, wisdom, psychological resilience, emotional intelligence, that represents a completely secure form of wealth.
And the best part is, this internal wealth requires zero physical storage space.
Zero. It carries absolutely no cognitive tax, and it cannot be degraded by economic fluctuations or theft.
This ancient understanding of internal wealth stands in such stark contrast to our current economic models. Socrates addresses this directly, declaring, "The secret of happiness, you see, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less."
Socrates identifies the fundamental flaw in the pursuit of endless addition.
But for you, listening right now, what is the actual mechanical process of developing that capacity?
Modern society operates on a psychological mechanism known as the hedonic treadmill.
Right, the endless pursuit of the next hit of dopamine.
Exactly. The acquisition of more simply resets your baseline of desire. It makes you require more stimulation just to feel a baseline level of satisfaction.
So developing the capacity to enjoy less isn't just about depriving yourself.
So, it's deliberate psychological training. It actively shifts the source of satisfaction from external acquisition to internal appreciation.
Which intentionally neutralizes that scarcity mindset that drives compulsive accumulation.
Right, rendering you essentially immune to the constant cultural demand to consume.
This philosophical shift directly impacts how we design our future, too. Joshua Becker outlines the mechanics of life design, stating, "The first step in crafting the life you want is to get rid of everything you don't."
Becker correctly positions subtraction as the mandatory precursor to intentional life design,
He frames subtraction not as a chore, but as a diagnostic tool.
which is brilliant because you cannot construct a new functional reality on top of an unexamined foundation of obsolete commitments. The removal of the unnecessary is not merely a clearing exercise.
It's an active, often painful decision-making process.
Yes, it forces you to define precisely what you actually desire. Elimination creates clarity.
Until you remove the noise of what you do not want, the signal of what you truly value remains totally obscured.
And Louise Smith illustrates the physical reality of attempting to bypass this step.
She warns, you can't reach for anything new if your hands are still full of yesterday's junk. The physical imagery there perfectly captures the concept of limited bandwidth.
It highlights the physical impossibility of grasping future opportunities while rigidly holding on to past decisions.
Your hands represent your human capacity.
Yes, a calendar completely filled with outdated obligations leaves absolutely no hours for new pursuits.
And a mind entirely consumed by past regrets cannot effectively process new information or even recognize emerging opportunities.
The deliberate release of yesterday's junk is a strict mechanical requirement for seizing tomorrow's potential. You just cannot grasp a new tool without first dropping the old one.
Which brings us to the confrontation with time itself. Steve Maraboli underscores the absolute finality of our timeline, stating, "Renew, release, let go. Yesterday is gone. There is nothing you can do to bring it back."
Maraboli confronts the harsh but necessary finality of closing the open loops of the past.
Because the human tendency to ruminate and attempt to alter past outcomes through present hoarding, it's just a futile expenditure of neurological energy.
It really is. Keeping an object from a failed past endeavor is often an unconscious attempt to keep that era alive.
So accepting the absolute unchangeability of yesterday is the psychological key to unlocking present action.
Exactly. Letting go is the ultimate acceptance of reality. It frees the mind to operate exclusively in the present moment, which is where agency actually exists.
Let's examine the ultimate transformation that occurs when we finally achieve this release. Brian H. McGill radically redefines the nature of a void. He notes, abundance is a process of letting go. That which is empty can receive.
McGill expertly redefines emptiness as pure potential rather than a negative void.
Because we possess this deep cultural terror of empty space, don't we? Why do we instantly view an empty calendar or a clear room as a failure of productivity rather than an achievement?
Because industrial society trains us to equate value with maximum capacity.
Right. If you aren't busy, you aren't valuable.
Exactly. An empty schedule is viewed as laziness, an empty room is viewed as incomplete, but McGill suggests that emptiness is actually a state of supreme readiness.
Only a vessel that has been completely emptied of its previous stagnant contents possesses the capacity to receive something new and transformative.
Emptiness is the necessary precursor to creation.
And Toni Morrison identifies exactly what is required for that creation and elevation. She states, if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down.
Morrison beautifully captures the shedding of cognitive and emotional taxes required for true elevation.
Gravity, in this specific context, is the cognitive tax we have been discussing all along.
Yes, the weight she refers to represents the cumulative burden of unnecessary physical possessions, outdated identities, and unresolved commitments.
Flight requires aerodynamics, precision, and extreme lightness.
Radical personal growth demands the ruthless elimination of any burden that anchors you to your current lower state of operation.
You cannot achieve a higher state of functioning while dragging the heavy remnants of your past behind you.
Which leads directly into the paradox of attachment. Buddha explains this by observing, you only lose what you cling to.
Now, this seems highly counterintuitive. How does the act of fiercely protecting something guarantee its loss?
It illustrates the fundamental paradox of attachment, and really how hoarding guarantees stagnation. The act of clinging to an object, a relationship, or a specific identity, it introduces intense fear into your psychological ecosystem.
And this fear of loss inevitably destroys the natural enjoyment and intended utility of the thing being held.
Exactly. True possession is characterized by a relaxed, fluid appreciation, whereas clinging accelerates the degradation of the experience.
By gripping something too tightly, you smother its value. You effectively lose the benefit of the item while still bearing the heavy burden of maintaining it.
Lao Tzu provides the ultimate synthesis of this entire journey. He states, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be.
The current identity, the what I am, that seems to be the final boss of subtraction.
Lao Tzu presents the ultimate synthesis of identity transformation and letting go of the former self.
Because the current identity is frequently the greatest single obstacle to realizing future potential.
Yes. As long as you rigidly defend your established persona and meticulously maintain the physical artifacts and relationships that support it, you actively block the emergence of new capabilities.
So letting go of the current self is the highest, most difficult form of subtraction.
It requires a profound willingness to temporarily exist in a state of unknowing. You have to trust that the removal of the old self is the exact mechanism that summons the new self into existence.
We have thoroughly mapped the psychological friction generated by unused objects. We've analyzed the severe cognitive burden of open loops, and we've explored the profound wisdom of 14 distinct thinkers regarding the art of subtraction. So we must ask, what does this require of the listener moving forward?
Well, the greatest misconception about letting go is the pervasive belief that it creates emptiness.
When in reality, it creates capacity.
Precisely. By engaging in the continuous process of subtraction, you gain absolute clarity, freedom, and focus.
This practice allows you to rapidly respond to new opportunities rather than remaining heavily anchored to old intentions.
Life is defined by how intentionally you choose what deserves a place within it. The true power of subtraction is the power to aggressively reclaim your finite attention and direct it exclusively toward the future you are attempting to build.
I want to leave you with one final thought. Modern life constantly trains us to systematically fill every silence and occupy every empty space. What would happen if you cleared a single space in your life, whether a physical shelf, a digital calendar, or a mental commitment, and intentionally chose to leave it completely empty for a month, simply to observe what entirely new thoughts are drawn into that deliberately created void?
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.